No. Oh, hi, it's working. Hello, how are you all doing? Can I invite you all, thank you all for coming, to come a bit closer? Because we're going to be inviting you to talk to each other, so it'd be great for you to be sitting together. So if you're sitting at the back and you don't mind, if you could, I invite you to move down and sit together. That would be amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hasn't it been an amazing day? I'm slightly buzzing from all of the conversations that we've had so far. Seeing so many brilliant people and so many great discussions. Thank you all so much for coming to join us. We knew this would be a more intimate group, and this was the venue, but it's a beautiful venue, huh?
So it was the smallest room we could get.
Yeah. That's the way they do things. So, yeah, I wanted to start by thanking Sync and thanking Ziad. Sync has sponsored this session today, and thanking you all for being here. My name is Harriet Pellereau.
I'm Jonathan Garner. We are from Mind Over Tech. Mind Over Tech was founded in 2018, and we work with organizations to help them develop cultures of positive digital habits. This whole 2 days conference is all about the big picture thinking of this paradox of technology, and really great kind of conversations being opened. As I was saying on the stage just before, where digital well-being really happens is once we leave the doors and in our day-to-day kind of lives. And really what we do at Mind Over Tech is try and bridge all of this amazing research and thinking which is going on here and bring it to individuals in the reality working in the digital trenches in a way where they can actually apply these things and benefit from them. So yeah, this is kind of what we're about. We work with many different organizations around the world at different levels, and yeah, we're going to share with you a little bit about some of the stuff that we do today in an interactive way.
Yeah, so as Jonathan said, we have tech backgrounds. I've worked as a creative technologist and in tech education for nearly 20 years. I used to run, in my last role, a team of 40 data scientists, and they would be teaching data analyst skills and democratizing access to data in different businesses. I love tech. I think we'd both describe ourselves as massive geeks. We think tech's fantastic, and we're going to be using various tools to encourage engagement during the session. And the first one is something called Mentimeter and Mentee. So as a first piece of housekeeping, if I could ask you to take a scan of this QR code, and that should take you to our first poll. And Sarah, if I could ask you to switch across to Mentee on the monitor with a very tricky first question. If this is your first Mind Over Tech session, just to warm up and make sure this is working for everyone.
Great. You never know, someone might have been at one before.
Exactly. Sometimes we get surprised.
Okay, great. So that's good. I think everyone's kind of plugged in and ready to go. We'll be referring back to this kind of several times throughout the session just to actually get some feedback from you guys.
And we'll share that QR code again, so if you didn't catch it.
Great. So if we could go back to the slides, please. Wonderful. So the next thing on the housekeeping is just to say, as we said, this is all about kind of practically applying this. So by the end of this session, everyone in the room will have actually identified an experiment personalized to you that you can run to improve your digital habits after leaving today's session. We're going to be taking some experiments from the Digital Habit Lab, one of the resources that we've created at Mind Over Tech. And so, yeah, this is something which we will say a bit more about later.
We're also going to have a Q&A at the end. There's a Q&A section in that Mentee that we just launched. So if you want to ask a question anonymously at any time, you can go in there and do it, or just feel free to ask questions as we're going along.
Last thing on housekeeping, everything that we do at Mind Over Tech is grounded in the latest research, and often we are referring to kind of publications and citations. Occasionally in the bottom left, you'll just see something swipe up like that. You won't have time to read it, but don't worry. The point is it's just saying that what we're currently talking about is grounded in a specific piece of research, and we'll have a way of sharing that with you all at the end if you want to go and learn more.
All right. So, as I said, we love technology. We're not here to tell you all to go on a permanent digital detox. But over our career, both of us have started to notice the ways in which our digital habits, or the way we use our technology, have been or started to negatively impact us in different ways. So firstly, in terms of productivity, one thing I noticed is that I was increasingly being distracted by a steady stream of notifications. And I would say to myself and tell people that I never had enough time. I always felt like I never had enough time to do the things I wanted to do. But somehow I always seemed to manage to find time to be mindlessly scrolling through social media or YouTube. And actually last year I was diagnosed with ADHD, which made a lot of sense of my childhood, but has also allowed me to explore and understand a bit more how less neurotypical brains can be impacted in this space as well.
So yeah, productivity is definitely something that we had identified and we see all the time from the sessions that we run as an area where digital habits can negatively impact us. Another is around well-being. So personally, I've definitely experienced various times where, states of anxiety, whether that's from unread messages or digital overwhelm in general, but also sometimes in more subtle ways, like the way it impacts my quality of sleep or just my sense of physicality, maybe even forgetting that I have a body for those 2 hours that I'm slumped over my inbox. Yeah, and I think that, again, we see this come up again and again in the various workshops that we run.
And the third area, just to highlight, and probably the most important to me, is the impact in terms of connection. So starting to notice myself being less present with colleagues and loved ones than I would want, and becoming lost in content that, while interesting, didn't necessarily serve my purpose on a deeper level. And this is particularly true with my kids. I have a 6-year-old boy, 8-year-old girl, and I really wanted to be present with them, but I would just find myself getting attracted to this incredible device, the devices around me. So I really started to think about that, and actually also had first-hand experience of the impact on teams and engagement during the pandemic, when I had this big team and the extra energy involved in helping people feel connected, working in a very digital environment.
So yeah, these 3 areas, essentially what we're saying, is that kind of the problem statement, if you like, that actually kind of negative digital habits or technology can have a negative impact on these 3 core areas. And we'd actually just like to explore that a little bit within your own personal experience as well. So up here we've got some examples of maybe some digital behaviors or habits that you might have experienced yourself. And so let's just take one for example. Maybe not, but maybe at one point in your life you might have found yourself locked in a doom scroll specifically to avoid kind of a sense of boredom or discomfort. Maybe not, but maybe you have. What we'd like you to do is turn to your neighbor and just take a look. You can pick out a number of these and just have a discussion around them. And specifically, what we'd like you to talk about is, first of all, is this something that you've experienced? But secondly, of these 3 areas, productivity, well-being, connection, which of them do you think this could most negatively impact? Or could it maybe impact more than one area? So for example, in this example here, doom scrolling to avoid discomfort or boredom, is that negatively impacting my well-being or my connection, or maybe a combination of them? There's no right answers here. This is just a conversation that we're inviting you to have. So we'll give you a few minutes for this, and I will probably fail to call everyone back at the beginning because people like getting lost in conversations, but that's fine. But yeah, please just turn to your neighbor and have this, and then we'll actually call on 1 or 2 people to share a bit of that conversation when we bring you back. Great. So yeah, over to you. How long? 2, 3. Like 30 seconds. Okay. Sorry, I know you're probably in the middle of that conversation, but if I could just call you back. And actually, I think we have a roving mic somewhere. But it would be really great to hear from one or two people, just a tiny bit of maybe you could share which of these you're talking about, and yeah, anything that came out of that conversation. Do we have a mic? Yeah. So yeah, please, a few people, if you don't mind, just sticking up your hand. Thank you. Oh, suddenly all at once. We'll start here.
All being very polite.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
We realized that this pernicious trick that sort of social media doom scrolling plays with your brain, which is that on the one hand, the entire experience is engineered to make it feel like it's really frictionless and it's really effortful to get started. So you might feel that, oh, that is just a way for me to relax. But then actually the effect on you is the opposite, because you get all this information about everything that's going on everywhere and all the what's going on with your friends and whatever. So it opens a lot of threads in your brain. So the effect on your mind is actually the opposite of relaxation, even though the experience sort of feels as if you're...
Interesting. And in terms of those three areas, the productivity, well-being, connection, how did you feel that was impacting?
So we spoke about that in relation to sort of browsing stuff before you go to sleep, because it opens all these open threads, which I guess you could consider impinging on your well-being.
Well-being specifically. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We had a few more hands here.
Paul.
Yeah, I think for us it was the sleep on the gone sleep than planned due to consuming digital content. It's so easy, isn't it, when you're in bed, and with the sort of some of the apps you can get now, like Instagram and stuff, you just scroll. Before you know it, you're super tired, but then you go beyond super tired, and you're pretty much awake, and it's like, oh, I've wasted an hour just scrolling through nothing.
Like a time warp.
Yeah. Absolutely. And in terms of that well-being, productivity, connection, did you have any sense of where you felt that was impacting?
Well, well-being because of sleep.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. And sleep, as we know, is one of the key sort of pillars for your physical well-being that you need to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. I particularly struggle with this when traveling, like business trips or so on, when you're in a hotel room or whatever, and like you could just go to bed. But so this is kind of interesting as well, and we'll get into this later, like kind of how different situations can have an impact on this as well. Thank you. Maybe one more person? Yes, behind.
Directly behind, yeah.
Yeah, behind Paul.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. That one compared yourself negatively to others online and felt bad as a result. This is my concern as a mother with my daughters, especially in this young age when they compare with some influencers using filters and nice skin, glowing face, and they are beautiful already, but they think that they are not good enough compared with those influencers, ladies. So it comes from also the social comparison way. So I think we need to deal with this. As a mature, to be honest, for me, beauty comes after my mind and smartness and wisdom. In this age, I work more in that. I care about the way I feel, the way I look, of course, but it doesn't affect me in this age, I think. And that's true answer, really. Honest answer.
I think I find myself comparing myself to other mothers, though.
Mothers.
Like, wow, they're doing so much stuff with their kids. Or they look so put together all the time. How do they do that?
If the comparison based on the achievement, sometimes, yes, I do, actually.
Yeah.
If I see someone achieve better than me, I feel like, oh, I am behind. So, yes, I do this. Sometimes.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So really here, I guess we're just, beginning to ground it a little bit in our own experience, but just really trying to paint this picture that this is something that everyone struggles with in our own individual ways. And actually, kind of considering how our habits currently negatively impact different areas of our lives is something which is good to reflect on regularly because it could change regularly. And actually, we're going to jump back into Menti and just take a quick heat map of the room. So if we could go over to Menti again, please. And here what you'll find is you can actually drop a pin on this little Venn diagram. So for you today, if we asked you this question in a week or a few weeks, it maybe would be different. But for today, do you feel, and you can do it in an overlap if you feel that your digital habits negatively impact more than one area. But please do just drop a pin.
I would definitely put myself between well-being and connection at the moment, and also just point out we're not standing here because we have this all sorted out. We're still working on this, and we still find this really hard in lots of different ways, and that's also okay. Jonathan said earlier on the stage that we don't believe that this is ever anything you can be perfect at, but it's always something you can kind of work on. We believe in that, so I think this is always something to keep an eye on. And as we can see, there's lots of places that people are positioning themselves, whether that's in terms of productivity or connecting or well-being or the crossover of the group between.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, just also useful to see kind of get a sense of the room from that. So if we could go back to the slides, please.
Thanks, Sarah.
So if we could,
Sarah, can we switch back to the
slide?
presentation?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay, so we've established all of us kind of struggle with this in different ways, and this is not unique to today's session. This happens whenever we kind of engage people in this conversation, and particularly at an event like this, we don't really need to remind ourselves because we're spending a lot of time talking about it, but it's just helpful to remind people in general of the context of why it is that we're all struggling so much from this. And actually, back in 2007, the year that the first iPhone was released, these were the 5 biggest companies in the world by market cap, according to some indexes anyway. Predominantly petroleum and industry, engineering companies. Fast forward to, I need to go back. You can see that, no? Yeah, thank you. We're doing this on purpose, just for the suspense of the turnover. There we go. Fast forward just over 10 years, and the 5 biggest companies in the world, all tech companies, the products and services that they're creating, completely disrupting the way that we live, both our personal and professional lives. This is kind of obvious to all of us, but in a way, we're all taking part in the world's biggest experiment, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is the percentage around the world from a perspective of smartphone ownership. So Bank My Cell, 85.74% of the world now own a smartphone. And like Jonathan said, it's a big experiment. What happens when you put a constantly connected supercomputer in most of the world's population? And we're just starting to explore with days like this, events like this, what that really means for everyone, and learning how to adapt as we see the impact of those phones on us.
Yeah, this is also from a recent survey from the Global Leadership Forecast, kind of looking at this from the perspective of a leader. You know, we've spoken a lot today as well about kind of the importance of role modeling and leading kind of good digital habits, whether that's in your organization or even in the culture of your family home. But on this kind of global leadership survey, you know, saying that 72% of leaders report feeling burnt out by the end of the day. But crucially, actually, only 27 of them believe that they are effective at leading virtual teams. And I think this is really pointing to this skills gap, which has come up. I was speaking again earlier about digital transformation. We're still, you know, we're all using all this amazing technology, but we're still actually missing the basic ABC of how to use that technology well, but also how to lead teams in a way which is empowering them to develop positive digital habits, which are allowing them to get the best from that. And I think a really crucial thing to say here as we kind of now dig into this a bit deeper is when we talk about digital technology, it's really key to understand that digital technology extends our minds. And what do we mean by that? Well, actually, you know, any technology could be described as an extension of something. You know, this glass, in a way, is a piece of technology. It allows me to hold liquid. It extends my capacity as a human to be able to do things. Cars extend our capacity to drive fast. Microscopes extend our capacity to see things in detail. In general, digital technologies, what do they extend? Is our conceptual thought, our mind. When we use technology, if you think about anyone using a piece of technology, where are they at that moment in time? They might be in the room, in the office, but actually where they are is up in their head. They're looking at a screen and they're kind of engaged in their mind. And this is really important to understand because when we look into our relationship with technology, what we're actually doing is also looking at our relationship with our mind at the same time. And bearing that in mind, we find it really useful to kind of start this exploration by understanding a little bit about the neuroscience of attention and how that works so that we can understand exactly what's going on in the kind of heart of our digital habits.
Exactly. So we've survived in our environment really by perceiving things around us and then taking action based on those perceptions. Andrew Shiblisky was talking earlier about our reaction to bears, that we need to run away. So this might be that we hear a noise and we react, we sense, smell food, and we move towards it. And these kind of perception action cycle, as it's referred, is really in place to keep us safe and allow us to survive in our environment. But as we've evolved, we've kind of got greater layers of functionality in our brain that allow us to react with a more sophisticated manner to the things around us. And we refer to these as our executive functions. And these abilities allow us to do things like regulate our emotions, make decisions, solve problems, plan for the future. As someone with ADHD, this is something I struggle with, many of these things, but fundamentally this is the nature of our brain. This is the kind of the things that you could say set us apart as human beings. This is ability to sense our environment, but then adjust our reactions according to our executive function ability.
And the way these executive functions work is they actually create a pause or a gap in this otherwise very habitual reflexive cycle. So imagine perceiving that bear, but actually instead of screaming and running away, maybe you know that actually, maybe you've read the kind of standing still is the right thing to do. So actually your executive function kind of create this pause or gap so that we don't jump straight to the normal action, but we can actually be intentional and take a different course of action. It's kind of a bit of an extreme example with the bear, but we're just trying to make a point here that the executive functions are creating this pause or this gap. And this is very, this kind of works, this is great. It's the prefrontal cortex, this part of our brain that's responsible for this. And our brain, just like any organ in our body, consumes energy. The brain's particularly power hungry. It takes up roughly 4% of our body mass and can consume up to 25% of our energy across the day. We've got a finite number of decisions that we can actually make during the day. And this is important to bear in mind. We're going to come back to this in a moment, but I just want to segue for a moment into some other research about how much we're actually using our devices, and then come back to this neuroscience of attention, because this survey is actually quite old now. It's from D-Scout. I think it's like the 2015 roughly sort of era. They installed an app on quite a number of people's phones, and they were observing how often people touch their devices in a day. What they found was the average user in this survey touched their phone this number of times in a day. An engaged user was this number. Now, we're not here to tell you that these numbers are good or bad. If you consider writing a lengthy text message, maybe you're one of those people that likes to write a bit of an essay when you're writing a message, maybe a lot of your taps and touches are already happening in just one message. It's not so much the number, but what's interesting is actually the frequency and how it shows up in our day. So actually what this turns out on average is once every 4 to 6 minutes during waking hours. And it really is like that. It's not one or two kind of lumps and then large periods of the day where we're not engaging with our devices. We can actually visualize this data from the D-Scout survey here across a 24-hour period. So yeah, midnight. It's a great laser, this. Midnight through to midnight. I'm going to start pointing at everything. Yeah. And we've got Elizabeth, our average user, and Laurie, our engaged user from the study. Every thin white line is a session of a few touches on the phone. So we can really see that it is, once every 4 minutes throughout the day, like a metronome. This person didn't, they slept not very long, apparently. But this kind of metronome, once every 4 minutes through the day, even if it's just a quick unlock of your phone to check the time. Of course, it's never just a quick unlock of your phone. There's always a message waiting there, which takes you down various rabbit holes. And there's this kind of constant piercing of our attention. And of course, this has impacts in various areas. One is productivity. This is a study that was done with an Australian telco, AMTA, a number of years ago, shadowing people in the modern workplace, trying to understand how long they spent on a work episode. And what we meant by work episode is when they begun a task and when they either completed that task or were distracted into another task. The average length of a work episode, 3 minutes. The longest that was recorded in this study was 9 minutes. Some superhero managed a 9-minute work episode. This averaged 86 daily interruptions. Not all of them from phones, but a large number of them increasingly correlating to digital interruptions. So perhaps unsurprisingly, this kind of constant distraction from our devices does impact productivity. But it's not just productivity, it's also our well-being as well.
Yeah, and to revisit the impact in the workplace and thinking about that neuroscience of attention earlier, if we had this idea that we've set a top-down goal, and this could be something like we need to finish a report. So we've set the goal, we're going to finish this report, and we start working. And then a notification pops up in our environment. But we've set this goal, and our executive functions kick in and allow us to ignore that notification, and we carry on, we continue with the report, and it works really well, it allows us to focus. But it's not just one notification, it's a constant stream of notifications, and as very scientifically demonstrated by this golden retriever, our executive function is persistently and consistently bringing us back to our intention, bringing us back to the goal of finishing this report. And that's fine, it works really well. But this is happening a lot, and it's happening all day and all week and all year. And over time, there's a cost to staying in that fight or flight state where our brains are constantly having to mitigate this distraction that's coming in. So there's a physical cost to this as well as a kind of a mental one as well.
So what can we do about this? Just speaking from a personal level, like before we even founded Mind Over Tech, I was, like Harriet said, we're terrible with this stuff. We're not here because we're great. We're here because we're doing this every day because we need to keep working at it. And actually for me, out of desperation, I was often waiting for a bus in London, to go to the co-working space, whatever. And I was in my Twitter feed before I even consciously realized I'd taken my phone out of my pocket. This perception action cycle, it was so habitual, it was going like this. And really, honestly, out of desperation, I was like, what can I do to really help kind of shift this in some way? And I ended up doing this. I put a bright yellow Post-it note on the front of my phone because the hope was at least I would see this block of color and it'd be like, Jonathan, warning, you're holding your phone right now. And then I wrote the word intention on it to ask this question, well, why? Actually, why am I picking it up? And this became a moment where, if I could say, well, I need to answer this client email or I need to book this dinner for my wife, that was, an intentional reason. And I would take the Post-it note off, do that and try and get out as quickly as possible. But if I didn't have a clear reason, then that was an invitation to say, okay, well, put your phone away and return to whatever it was you were doing before, even if it was just being bored at the bus stop. It's a tiny thing, but what amazed me was actually how powerful this was in shifting my behavior. It was a tiny disruption to my habits, but actually, with every time I looked at it and put it away, it's like I gained confidence. I gained experience in actually the minutes I was gaining back. My day wasn't as packed as I thought it was. Actually, I had 2 minutes to breathe, and I experienced that. And it was great until the Post-it note after a few days lost its stick and fell off, and then I was back into my old habits. But the point here was that what we really learned here is that these kind of micro disruptions to our digital habits are actually a really practical way, not having to go on a digital detox and get rid of our technology, but actually to disrupt our behavior in small ways to actually build up these sets of positive digital habits for ourselves. And this deck of cards that we mentioned, the Digital Habit Lab, is one of the resources we created. There's 50 experiments in here, which we encourage people to actually run for themselves to experience this. And not all of the experiments in there are going to work for everyone. Everyone's needs are different. It might be that what works for one, what doesn't work for the other. But what we'd like to do is just share 4 of those experiments with you today. I've already shared one of them. And then actually invite you all to pick one of them and then run this as an experiment for yourself over the next 24 hours. We're here for more than 24 hours, so maybe we could even check in with some of you tomorrow and hear how you're getting on. So let's just run through these quickly. So I've already spoken about this one to a certain extent. Just pretty much putting that on your phone. And you could have a message on there, you don't have to, but the point is that every time, first of all, it's drawing awareness to your phone use. But actually what it's kind of doing is externalizing that executive function that we spoke about. It's actually doing some of the heavy lifting for you, so you don't need to think so much. There's kind of like a reminder there to just put that away.
We've had people run this experiment and actually ask their kids to write the note on the Post-it and to write that each day, and that has an extra layer of remembering and reminding us of priorities and intention as well. Okay, so another experiment we invite people to run is to start using a physical alarm clock. JP, can we move to the next mentee? And if you could go to your mentee slides now, I have a question for you. Thanks, Sarah. I wonder how many of you at the moment, right now, are using your phone as an alarm clock? I'm going to raise my hand because I'm traveling. That's all I've got right now. Amazing. So mostly people on the yes. That's normally what we find. And that could work fine. But the reason we invite this experiment is it's quite easy to slip from turning your alarm off to being in your email, to setting yourself on someone else's agenda, to, as you say, the frictionless of entering social media and suddenly reading stuff that's maybe making you a bit angry or making you a bit conflicted. And sometimes just having the space to be and to breathe a bit before we begin our day can have a big impact on the rest of your day. So it's an experiment we ask people to try and just explore, to use a physical alarm clock instead. Sarah, if we could go back to the presentation. Thank you.
I think one other thing to say with this one, in general, with all the experiments, you'll have heard of most of these things before. It's not that they're kind of rocket science. You'll be like, oh yeah, I know that, I could use an alarm clock. But it's like, how often do we actually do it? Because we know about these things, but then actually, even if we do it for a while, once we stop, then we stop benefiting from these things. So this is the whole point of these experiments, is to continually reconnect us with the benefits and actually habitualize this positive behavior. Third one here is using the Pomodoro technique. Quick show of hands, has anyone heard of the Pomodoro technique before? Okay, so like maybe a third of the room. Keep your hand up in the air if you use it regularly. Okay, some people. Just to quickly explain it, if you haven't heard of it, this is a really great productivity technique to help you stay focused on your work. And how it works is by using a timer to break up large chunks of time into smaller focused chunks of time. So let's say you've got 2 hours. You've got a massive inbox full of emails and some admin to do. You could just crack in, you've got 2 hours, just go for it. Probably go quite well. By the end of the 2 hours, you might maybe have checked the news a little bit or have slid into something else, maybe you're feeling a bit fatigued. With this, you set a timer for 25 minutes, and as you set the timer, you clearly articulate, okay, I'm going to send emails in these 25 minutes. I'm just going to respond to emails. You work, as you're working, because you set that intention, it's easier to spot when you're going off track. You know if you're not emailing, so you can kind of bring yourself back. And you know that you've only got 25 minutes until your break, because when the 25 minutes is up, you just set a 5-minute timer and take a break. Take a walk, have a drink, whatever it is, and then you go back and do another 25-minute session. So then 2 hours becomes 4 Pomodoro sessions, 4 lots of 25 minutes, very clearly defined and focused, regular breaks to refresh your executive attention, and actually at the end of it, you can get a lot done and feel a lot less pressured.
And if you're wondering what the Pomodoro is, that's the Italian word for tomato. In the UK, we have egg timers, but in Italy, they have these beautiful tomato ones. So using a physical timer and setting that can be a nice way of keeping yourself on track. Okay, the last one to share is scheduling your email sessions. So this is an example of task batching, bringing tasks together into one spot during the day to be more efficient, but also to mitigate the temptation to be checking our email all day long. If we have it open as a tab on our browser, it can be quite tempting to just check, does anyone need me? Is there anything urgent? Is there anything important that I need to attend to? So by scheduling it and saying, I'm going to check my email at these times of the day and ignore it in between, that can help support you to focus. It can help to kind of keep you on track. Now, I would say with this and with all of the experiments that we share is that we invite these as serving suggestions. And it could be that in your role, ignoring your email for periods of the day is just not realistic and not possible. Your job might be to respond to emails. So we would ask people to just consider if there are areas where they could try this experiment, maybe in their personal email. Maybe that doesn't need to be something that's checked all day long. And just to be playful in how this could be translated in a way that makes sense. As Jonathan said, everyone has different needs from technology. Everyone is in a different environment and has different expectations upon them. So using this as an inspiration of how you could use something like task batching and allowing yourself to stay focused during your day.
Yeah, totally. It's about kind of tweaking it so that it's challenging you. It's just outside of your comfort zone, but something that's within the realms of reality. And everyone will be able to take any experiment and shape it in that way with a little bit of thought. So the moment's come, and we'll give you like a minute, maybe turn to your partner and have a conversation. But at the end of this, we'd like everyone to have picked one of these experiments to try over, let's say over the next 24, 48 hours. So yeah, we'll give you a minute for this, and then we're going to come back to a survey, and people can let us know. So yeah, if you want to chat to your partner to help make a decision, maybe share what you're choosing. We'll call you back in a minute.
If you're not sitting next to someone, this is a moment to go and
come down and join us.
Collect and gather and sit next to someone new and discuss which experiment you're going to choose.
Okay. Perhaps JP, if you wouldn't mind moving us over. Whenever you're ready to the Menti.
Yeah, Sarah, if you could change this slide, thank you.
Great. So yeah, now's the time. Let us know which experiment you've chosen. If you don't have Menti open, you can just obviously scan the QR code again. But it would be great to hear from as many of you as possible which experiment you've decided to run. We've already got a Pomodoro in. Great.
Neck and neck. Pomodoro, Pomodoro.
Sticky notes coming from behind.
Ooh. Poor alarm clock.
Excellent. Okay. And, this is great. As we said, everyone's needs are different. Also, if we asked you this in a week or two's time, maybe you choose a different experiment. The whole point with this is that it's something which is just a practical way to bridge into your current experience and find a way to work with your behavior as it is right now. Pomodoro for the win there. That's great.
Yeah.
If we could go back to the main slides, please. Wonderful. We've done that. Good. So just to say really quickly, if we ended the session now and kind of said goodbye to you, I'm sure we'd all feel excited to be running our experiments. I'm sure you're feeling really excited about that. But statistically, most of you probably wouldn't actually get around to following through. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes understanding why. And a lot of it is to do with kind of the design of technology and habits in general. So this slide's referencing some very famous research in psychology from the 1940s 1940s from a fellow called B.F. Skinner. Many of you in the room will have heard of this before, but if you haven't heard of it, what Skinner was doing was running a series of experiments to understand how environments could condition the behavior of beings. And the environment he designed in this experiment was a cage with a button in it. And when the button was pressed, it would release food into the environment. So he put some pigeons in there, and he was curious to see, once the pigeon was, strutting around and eventually pressed the button and saw the food coming out, would that connection, the little light bulb going off over the pigeon's head, would that make it press the button more regularly? Or not, and perhaps quite predictably, yes. Once it made that connection, pressed the button, saw the food, it would press the button more. Another variation of this experiment he ran was, he was curious, what would happen if the button was wired so that sometimes it released food and sometimes nothing came out at all? Would that make the pigeon confused and less interested in the button? Turns out the opposite was true. By making the reward variable, it created very compulsive behavior in the pigeons. Again, hilarious images in my mind of this pigeon just furiously pecking away at this button. But perhaps not so hilariously, the psychology of this holds true in humans as well, and went on to inform the design of slot machines, gambling machines, where we're basically pressing buttons and sometimes getting a reward and sometimes not, creating very compulsive behavior in the way that we use things. And it's not that much of a stretch to realize that our phones are screens of buttons that we press, and sometimes we get likes and new messages in our inbox, and sometimes not. The point being, habits are really strong, and overcoming them and working with them is hard.
And no one's immune. So this is a picture of the Prime Minister of Norway, caught playing Pokemon Go in a parliamentary session. And to be clear, I don't show this photograph to shame her. I see myself in this picture. And I'm sorry to say, there are times when I very much want to give you my full attention in a meeting and I'm distracted by something, or worse, when I'm with my kids. So I guess our point is, this is hard. Overcoming these habits is hard. And I think it's really important to be gentle on ourselves. As we begin to notice things, it might actually start to feel worse. But also that making small shifts can actually allow us to adopt new habits and new behaviors as well.
And yeah, just like I was saying before, statistically, if we kind of left now, many of you wouldn't actually run your experiment. This is some research around looking at the adoption of a new behavior. So this is a group of people adopting a new exercise routine. And in this study, they had a control group and then a group that received a motivational talk, and then a group that received the motivational talk and also visualized them doing the activity ahead of time. And what they found was, of everyone there, the control group, 35% of people went on to perform this new action. Those who had the motivational talk, 38%. That motivational talk, I'm sure they were a great speaker, only eked out 3% more. the simple act of visualizing ahead of time, thinking, okay, next week I'm going to put a sticky note on my phone when I'm sat at my desk. That simple act of visualizing raised that final group up to 91%. So actually there's a lot, and we would greatly, in our sessions, we'd run lots of exercises to help kind of go through this process, but we would really recommend you just spend a moment to actually visualize the experiment you've chosen and done this to actually really help increase the chance of you running it and therefore benefiting from it. This is what we're saying. We know about these things, but if we're not doing them, well, what's really happening? So what we're really talking about or have spoken about so far is our digital habits. That's what we've been exploring in this session. But it's safe to say, and maybe it's come up in your conversations already, it's not just our digital habits, it's the digital habits of everyone around us as well. And particularly, whether that's in your families or in an organizational context, actually how these things kind of collide and overlap, the cultural digital habits of our organization, this is where it gets really messy and where things get really real as well. But actually, in order to work on the cultural digital habits, the journey has to begin on working on ourselves first, and then get into that. At Mind Over Tech, we've developed a framework that we teach, which is called MORE: Mobilize, Observe, Reflect, Experiment. And in our programs, we really teach this so that people can actually establish a long-term practice of digital habits to actually continually benefit from this. But like we said, the journey begins with the individual, but then, it can kind of expand out from there.
So we encourage teams to actually run experiments together. As Jonathan said, we can all feel very delighted about the idea of this experiment, but actually doing it, actually taking the action can be quite difficult. So visualizing, planning, setting ourselves up for success can help, but so can accountability. So running experiments as a group, running them together can be really, really powerful. And in addition to running talks like this, which are raising awareness of the challenges of this space, the other thing that we run is to train up what we call digital habit champions. And these are advocates within an organization who are trained to hold that space and to continuously work on this, because it's not a one and done. This is not a situation where once you've been told and you've been to a talk, you're suddenly transformed and fixed and you understand and your relationship's perfect again. This is something that requires continuous work, and to have someone in the business that knows how to hold that well within the company and keep that energy going can be extremely powerful.
Yeah, and to really work as a practitioner and kind of keep that drumbeat going. So yeah, and in terms of measuring the impact, then this becomes really important. And there's a number of ways we do this through different surveys and so on. But part of today's session as well, there's so many great academics and researchers here that we're always really interested in connecting to really understand how we can do this even better. This is a continual kind of process which we're looking into, because as especially all of you academics know, measuring any kind of subjective well-being is not that easy, and particularly in this kind of realm. But often we will create all sorts of impact reports with our clients and partners based off these things which we're doing here. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of the session itself. We've got some space here for Q&A, whether it's about your digital habits themselves or anything else, and then we've got a couple more slides before we finish up. I actually don't have access to the Menti.
JP, is there anything in the Q&A?
Great. Hopefully that question's been answered. If anyone still has that question, let us know and we can say more.
We are Mind Over Tech. I'm Harriet. This is Jonathan. Come and speak to us afterwards.
Yes. Aside from that, any other questions or things which are coming up for anyone?
There was a really good moment on the stage earlier where someone was talking about distraction and a really loud phone ring just went off in the audience. Yes. Oh, do we have a mic up here? Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for the great sessions. I have a question. but it's like more of a philosophical because I still didn't have an answer for it. We usually, at least I know my uncle who always sharing his, let's say, Snapchatting or maybe doing it offline in his phone, because he think that documenting your life is the thing that we couldn't have it in the past. And I think we are the generation that we are now trying to document our life for the next generation, where we, instead of having physical pictures or albums, now we have it online. But I still find it more because I'm not the one who is like to share and overshare, but I have this doubts in my feeling that what if I'm gonna regret it in the future? Like I didn't really write let's say stuff and keep it, let's say, for my beloved ones. And that's one of the things that still struggle me to, let's say, take my phone or take pictures or write something or write ideas, because it's hard to do it maybe now in a diaries or a physical. So yeah, that's like a thought maybe or a question, so how to mitigate this.
Thank you so much. I think probably quite a lot of people can relate to that. I think what I would say to that is that we really strongly believe at Mind Over Tech that there's no such thing as a good or a bad digital habit. I just don't think that's the case. I think it's very subjective, and it really depends on the individual. So what I would suggest is that, and this is a little bit what I was saying on the stage before, it's not so much about whether it's good or bad, it's like, is it intentional? Really, what I would encourage you to do is reflect on this for yourself and work out actually, because there will be pros and cons. There'll be things which you'll value about doing that. The kind of, like it's easy to recall those memories. Like taking a picture, a selfie in the moment can be a really connecting moment. But if on the other hand, you're just doing it all the time out of habit and you're not actually present there when you're doing it, maybe there's a negative. So really, if you reflect on it and work out for you what feels like the right thing, as long as you've made that decision and stick by it, from our point of view, that's really the main thing. With every gain that technology brings, there's always a loss. That's always the case. Even back, there was a story that I often share about from centuries ago, a monk, he turned into an abbot called Johannes Trittimus. And he was, this was around the time that the printing press was first invented. And he was a religious man and was obviously interested in spreading the Bible around the world. So you'd have thought that he'd be quite into the idea of the printing press to actually spread that idea. But actually he was really against it, because he said, as a monastic, the role of a monastic at the time was to spend their life handwriting out the Bible, scribing it, and the value that they gained from that act of devotion was actually so valuable for them as a religious person that far outweighed the value of printing the Bible. So the point of that story is there is no right or wrong. It's really down to you as an individual, and the only way you can do it is by spending time. And that's what we try and do in these sessions, is create space to reflect, because we're so busy. It's like actually stop for a moment and think, what is important to me? How do I use my tech? Is my tech aligned with my values and goals, or is it going against them? And then use these experiments and our more methodology to actually keep that online over time. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Johannes, the other Johannes. You're not an abbot, are you?
Not yet.
So this is maybe an unfair question, because you've been asked this before, and maybe there's no good answer for this. But if you were to reflect on how would you deliver this content for teenagers, for example, for even maybe younger than teenagers, preteens, what might you change about it? And is it a fair question to ask kids to reflect on
it's
values and things like that?
Yeah, totally fair. I mean, we have run this session with kids of many different ages over the years, and we don't do it so often these days, but I'm always blown away by how it's so undifferent from any other session. The thing is, actually, whether it's kids and adults or even within an organization with people in different roles, this conversation is completely leveling. Everybody has an experience and an opinion on their relationship with technology, and however old we are, it's all impacting us in different ways. So actually, I'm sure there are small tweaks that you could do, but so far, whenever we've done that, actually, I've been blown away in terms of how quickly they get it and how the conversations are very similar. Yeah.
And I think it's already come up today that one of the most effective things we can actually do as parents is just to to talk about this loads, and actually just to encourage kids to notice what's going on around them, how it's affecting the people around them, and just to begin that conversation. So I think there's a lot of parallels, but we, as we said, we don't work directly with kids because we can't do everything, and that's not our background. But we've lots of people in our network who do work with children, and it's the same approach of just encouraging that reflection and noticing as well.
Yes, please. Sorry, could we have the microphone? I can run it if you want. No worries.
This is great.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, do you have or have you already conducted some studies which have shown the impact of those steps and habits on the students' performance? Students of university, students of various ages. So is there any
yes, so
connection?
I mean, we've dabbled in it to a certain extent, but hopefully it's clear we're not a research organization, but we are absolutely, I mean, always, particularly whenever we come here, it's great to meet all the researchers and academics, and very much always in conversation and always looking to partner with and improve that process. Yeah,
because I think spreading this culture is very, very pivotal among students, regardless of their cultural. Because I think this is a common. We share the same problem every way.
Absolutely,
of accessing the limited time of using technology.
Absolutely, this is the where the rubber meets the road, as they say. Like everything we're talking about in these 2 days, like this is where it actually turns up day to day for all of us. So yeah, I 100% agree.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jonathan, we've got some questions.
Oh, great.
In the chat here. I'm also, now I got JP's laptops. It's all worked out.
It was just a matter of time before it got wrestled out of your hand.
Bad habit. I avoid real conversations with people about my feelings. I rather type it for them.
Sorry, can you say it again?
Bad habit.
Yeah.
I avoid real conversations with people about my feelings. I'd rather type it for them. So I think this is speaking to that experience of it feeling harder to express things vocally. Maybe there's a positive to that, you know, you're actually engaging in some way. But the fact that they've started this with bad habit, as we said, we don't classify things good or bad, but if it's been self-identified that this is something you'd rather not do and get better at talking to people about it. Yeah, I guess this is
and in a way, you know, like we said at the beginning, we're not anti-tech. Like if a chat interface is facilitating you to be able to even express that right now, I'd chalk that up as a massive win. And a lot of this is not about getting a quick result. A huge amount of this is actually, as you begin to work with your digital habits, is increasing your awareness about yourself. And maybe that writing that comment actually kind of like struck a chord with you, and there's this moment of insight and realization. So like being kind to yourself, understanding that, okay, maybe actually through my phone, I'm now realizing that this is something which is actually an issue, and therefore, you know, to aspire to kind of work with that kind of moving forward. Thank you, whoever
Thank you
shared
for sharing.
that. Yeah.
How can I manage my time between studying and tech? Pomodoro technique can help with that one, for sure. That comes up a lot with studying and focus time.
Yeah.
Any other tips?
I think just in general, really applying this experimental mindset and trying lots of completely different approaches. I think one thing that I'm really hot on is like, you don't need to believe that an experiment is going to work for you in order to try it. If you think about scientists, they don't have a presupposed, well, ideally, they don't have a presupposed idea about what the outcome will be. They just try something and see what happens. So I'd encourage you to try lots of different things. Don't think that something small isn't going to have a big impact. That Post-it note changed a lot for me. And whenever I return to it, it does again. So yeah, just experimentation, trying different things and learning over time what really works for you, I'd suggest. Yeah.
Okay, just do one more from here. How can we maintain our digital mind health when working in a digital remote work environment requiring to be mostly on connected devices?
Yeah, I mean, again, without speaking more directly, I might even just answer in the same way as last time. But again, so within the Digital Habit Lab, we've got experiments in different categories. So there's well-being, boundary setting, communication, focus. So maybe it might be that boundary setting and well-being might be some experiment areas that you might want to dip into to like help kind of take better quality breaks or so on. But yeah, without more time, we're going to hang out here afterwards. So if anyone wants to chat more about that, but I think we'll move forward. Got a 1-minute feedback form, which we would really appreciate. It's just a quick, literally 2 questions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wouldn't mind just quickly scanning this and letting us know what you think, that'd be greatly appreciated. And then we've just got one last, maybe slightly inspirational slides just to send you on your way. It's not loading for you. You could try typing in there's a URL underneath. Otherwise, afterwards, then we can
Just
help you out with that.
us,
Yeah. Okay. Great. So just whilst the last of you are finishing that up, just to leave you with a thought. So, we've spoken quite a lot today about productivity, well-being, about basically using our attention as a resource to help improve productivity and well-being. And that it certainly does that, but our attention is actually so much more than that. I feel like I might have started too soon. I'm going to wait a minute.
We're getting some good stuff.
Yeah.
We should let them finish. It's like, oh, is it worrying or not?
That's it. Yeah, is it a good sign?
Yeah.
Or maybe everyone's actually just slid into their Instagram feeds.
They're all in Twitter. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so just a parting thought for you. Yeah, we've really spoken today about basically our attention as being a resource to help improve productivity and well-being. And our attention can absolutely do that. But actually, we really believe that your attention is so much more than that, and is actually really one of our greatest assets as a human being. And just to explain a little bit about why we really believe that, just a thought experiment here. You see this box on the screen. I'd just like you to imagine for a moment that this box represents the entire universe. So all of space and time, infinitely expanding out, past, present, and future. It's quite a big screen, but it's still not big enough. But it's kind of helping us visualize this. We can never experience all of this, obviously. But we do all experience some corner of this. And based on who you are, when and where you're born, basically you have your life's experience, your own little corner of the universe. But But even of your experience, you actually only have access to a tiny part of that. Because of the way your attention works, maybe right now you're paying attention to my voice or the images on the screen. Maybe you're not paying attention to that creaking sound as the doors close at the back of the room, or the air conditioning lightly kind of brushing against your skin, until I mention those things, and now that's exactly what you're paying attention to. The point being that your attention is actually filtering out a lot of your experience, and you can only really pay attention to kind of one thing at a time consciously. And this is important because your attention, where you invest your attention, goes on to inform many things about who you are. Your beliefs, your theories, your judgments, the music you listen to, the books you read, the friends you hang out with, all of these things inform your belief system about the world. And actually, based off that, the people that you marry, the jobs that you take, the adventures you go on, who you are as a person, this is informed by your belief system. So actually, your attention is this kind of very fragile but hugely valuable bridge which connects you to your experience, to the universe, and actually shapes the whole quality of your life. Where you invest your attention really matters. So we'd like to leave you with this question. What would you like to pay attention to in your life? And are your digital habits helping you to serve that? So thank you very much. We really appreciate all of you. And we'll be here if you want to come and chat. Thank you.
Thank you.